Welcome to the Sportswoman Show. I'm your host, Gabby Hoffman. From gator hunting in the swamps of Florida to fly fishing in the cold water streams of the Mountain West, join us as we explore real human stories of women, from influencers to scientists to policymakers who are spending their lives in the outdoors. Let's begin. Kenia, thanks so much for joining the Sportswoman Show. It's good to have you on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Could you introduce yourself to the listeners and explain your background and how you got involved in hunting and fishing?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my name is Kenia Link. I live in northern Wisconsin. We just got about 12 inches of snow on the ground. So it's a little cold where I live right now, but it's definitely a part of the country that's big into hunting. I work for an organization called International Order of Teddy Roosevelt, also known as IOTR. I am very passionate about the hunting conservation world, and that's the general idea behind what IOTR does. And I guess I have just grown up hunting since I could walk. Really, my first memory of hunting, I was probably like 5 years old, and I was walking through the woods. Actually, let me rewind. My dad was walking through the woods, and I was on his shoulders during a Wisconsin deer drive, and we were tracking a buck that he had just shot. So it goes way back for me. It's definitely something that I've grown up around and something that I'm very passionate about. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Wisconsin is a sportsman and sportswomen's paradise, and I haven't really spent much
It
time there.
is.
I've only been to River Falls, which is beautiful, and I saw some great trout murals in the university town and down in the small town
Yeah.
that they have. So my experience in Wisconsin, unfortunately, is very limited, but I have a lot of friends from Wisconsin who always tell me, you need to come up to Wisconsin. It's such a playground for fishing and hunting. And so what do you remember, having grown up in Wisconsin, fondly about developing these hobbies in hunting and fishing? Was there a particular hunt or fishing trip that you went on with your dad or with friends or others that really sticks with you today and influences your work?
Yeah. Absolutely. Like I said, my memory, some of my first memories of life itself is with hunting, and with my dad and with my mom and my siblings. And, it's really been since day one for me. But as far as Wisconsin hunting, I would say definitely one of my most memorable hunts in Wisconsin was actually just this past November. I shot my biggest buck that I ever have shot in Wisconsin. So a whitetail deer. It was a big 12-point buck.
Wow.
And yeah, and it had a couple broken points. So some would argue that it was actually a 10-pointer, but it should have been a 12-pointer, but it was a really old buck that you could just tell had been living in the swamp country of northern Wisconsin for quite some time. And we actually were doing a deer drive. My family, we hunted a big group of about 30 to 40 people, give or take, during the 9-day gun season for deer hunting. And we do deer drives the whole time. So public land, private land, we do it all. And this is the first buck that I ever was able to harvest during a deer drive. And my younger twin brothers, who are 16, they pushed the buck right to me. So it was kind of a fun, memorable family experience. And I'll tell you what, I was shaking in my boots before, during, and after it happened, but especially after, just because of how exciting it was for me to shoot, my first really big buck in, basically in my backyard. It was about a mile and a half from the house I grew up in. So it really wasn't that far.
That's a full circle moment. I know those deer up your way are pretty big. When I was in
Yeah.
Michigan about 2 years ago, I went to the Upper Peninsula and I went to this section of the region near Houghton. I forget the exact town, but it was right past the monastery where they make famous jam. Gordon Ramsay had gone there,
Oh,
visited,
yeah.
and gotten some, I forget the particular type of jam, but it looked really delicious. A lot of cool naturey things to do in the UP. And I went to this section of the
Absolutely.
region. There were so many deer. They were thick, Like, they looked like big does or, bucks that had shed their antlers prior, because it was
Yeah.
around March, so they would have already shed their antlers. But there were so many deer concentrated in this lot of land. I don't know if it was private or public, it looked like private land to me. But there are so many animals to me, even just in my limited adventures in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, in the region, and everyone always talks about big bucks, so that's not surprising that you would land something of substantial size, in the region.
Yeah.
Were you ever worried about encountering certain predators like gray wolves? Because I think people forget that there are a lot of, apex predators like that, and wolves have grown to really healthy numbers. I think people misunderstand that. But have you ever had to worry about, encountering a wolf where you live? Because I know in some of the portions of Wisconsin, they've
Mhm.
started to inhabit and, repopulate and regenerate. We want wolves. I think nobody disputes the importance of wolves. But have you ever had that fear hunting in Wisconsin that you may encounter a wolf?
Oh, 100%, and I'm really glad you brought that question up because, yes, there are a lot of big bucks in Wisconsin. There's it's a beautiful state to hunt whitetail bucks in. However, I mean, looking back, to those first memories of mine growing up, from 5, 6 years old, hunting with my dad, the amount of deer that there are now is way different. It's really, really challenging to find a big buck now, and I think that's why it's so significant for me to reflect on this past November when I shot this really big buck because, I'm 24 years old. I've been hunting for close to 20 years, on my own, with my dad, a little bit of both. Um, but I mean, honestly, like this was, it was a long time coming for this moment. I've shot a few other bucks, that were nice, but nothing like this past November. And when I was in the deer or when I was hunting these deer in the woods throughout this 9-day, season, I in my group, we physically laid our eyes on 8 different wolves.
What?
So, yeah, like, it is a legit thing, and I think Wisconsin gets a misconception sometimes because, down in Southern Wisconsin, the more rural areas where you can hunt, in that part of the state, there's big bucks everywhere, there might not be as many wolves, but way up here, it's like a 6-hour drive to Madison where I live, so it's way far north, and let me tell you what, there's wolves everywhere and coyotes too, and, when you're not seeing a wolf, you're seeing wolf tracks. They're everywhere right now, and it's progressively gotten, more and more so since since my hunting career started when I was, a kid. So, and it's really interesting, and, I feel safe-ish to an extent, because I have a loaded rifle with me most of the time when I am hunting in the woods. So, that's my comfort right there is I know that if something were to come after me, I have, that rifle with me to defend myself and to protect myself. But I mean, otherwise, yeah, I mean, they're scary animals. They're pretty timid though. They don't really come close to humans. If they see you, they'll usually run. I mean, you don't really hear of any, bad encounters with wolves and people. But yeah, it's
Livestock for
definitely
sure.
a problem up here.
Yeah, they have a big concern, of course, in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem and some of these other places a little more west of you,
Mhm.
where these conflicts continue to brew. And we won't dwell so much on the politics of it, but
Yeah.
the there is a problem where, let's say, you may come into the crosshairs of a wolf. Let's say the wolf,
Yeah.
some odd reason, were to attack you. I think this is more prevalent with mountain lions. I think mountain lions, you have probably
Yes.
I'm not like an expert here, but my understanding from what I've observed is mountain lions seem to be more aggressive towards people than
Mhm.
wolves would be. I don't know if
Right. Yep.
my
That's my
a good
understanding
reading.
too, for sure.
But, you'd have to worry because they're on the Endangered Species Act, and people who
Right.
watch shows like Yellowstone, it's one of my favorite shows, heavily embellished, but there are a lot of truths and kernels of truth in the show about kind of these themes that they communicate about, human predator conflicts and, gentrification of wild
Yeah.
spaces. How do you maintain conservation? And they showed that kind of confluence of, just different warring factions between people and animals and radical preservationists and human rights. What am I talking about? animal rights activist, totally different things. And
Yeah,
so people forget that as they start to encroach the landscape more, if there's no proper management, this is a sad reality, unfortunately, but you have to manage stuff like this. And I know stakeholders in Wisconsin have said, please hear us out. We need to manage the wolves. It doesn't mean they're going to be extirpated from existence. But
right.
if you're encountering 8 individuals of the gray wolf variety, that is a little.
Yeah, and it's, and especially when, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hunters, in this vicinity, where I'm currently located. It's, I don't even know the numbers off the top of my head, but there's like an army amount of Wisconsin, deer hunters that time of year, and it'd be interesting to, take some sort of a like survey, on how many wolves were spotted during that 9-day gun season. It's kind of an interesting thing, and I mean, yeah, it can be really controversial and it can get really political, but that's just, speaking from literal experience of last November, that's how many wolves we saw.
That is such a cool thing too, because like you said, they were probably more subdued than you thought they would be. They didn't have a reason
Mhm.
to attack you because you weren't chasing after the same things, I don't think. So
Right.
if they've started to kind of crawl towards and move towards the cities, I think they sometimes adapt and may be a little more privy to, you know, work in concert with people. Ranchers certainly have qualms with them because they're eating their livestock, and that's a natural fear and problem, of course.
Yeah.
So every different person has different opinions of wolves. I don't think they should be eliminated. I think they should be managed smartly.
Yeah.
Just because of how things are. And we see whenever there's a lack of management, you see this kind of imbalance. Colorado, as you all know, at your organization, Colorado is like center stage for, wolf reintroduction by ballot box biology, which we can let's segue more so into kind of what you do at IOTR. So what led you to work for the
Yeah.
organization? Did you have experience working in conservation policy beforehand, or was this the first time you've done it more officially? So what is
Yeah.
your exact role?
Yeah, and I love this question because it's something that, it's been so important to me my whole life, and it's something that I've held dearly throughout my studies in Wisconsin. I finished both undergrad and my master's at the University of Wisconsin. And while I was there, the entire time I was there, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I want to be hunting, I want to be fishing. There's not much you can do in the city of Madison when you're living there and you wanna go hunting, or you can fish a little bit if the if the lakes are frozen, or if it's, not a 90-degree day and you don't have class, but, um, you know, it really, stirred my passions up a lot when I was in school. I'm like, "Okay, I wanna be involved in this world a little bit." And so that's essentially why I ended up getting my master's in policy and administration. I studied that in my graduate degree. Loved it, loved, understanding policy, just general policy and understanding how it can affect, people from the top down and the bottom up. So I took a job out of graduating with the NRA, and I worked on Second Amendment policy. Absolutely loved it, and I worked on a campaign for a few different candidates in Wisconsin. Loved that grassroots experience. Absolutely loved the boots on the ground, talking with voters, talking with the Second Amendment community about why the whole idea of voting is so important to that community and why you should vote and why it matters. And I guess I wanted more after that, and I took a job with Americans for Prosperity, which, was year round doing that. I was boots on the ground all the time talking with voters, and I was really successful in both roles. Had an absolute blast. I'm a social butterfly, so talking with people is the best the best way for me to spend my time in any job. Um, and, I loved both of those jobs, and I would have stuck with them if more opportunities didn't come up. But, basically, I found IOTR last December. Um, I had a conversation with Luke about Hunter Nation and about IOTR and what we're doing here. And and he kind of explained, that I would be a good addition to the team, and how, I could really use a lot of my value and what I bring to the table in the organization, through my past experiences of working in the grassroots world, but also, being an avid young female hunter who's hunted all over the world and um, has a big passion for fishing and conservation efforts too. So, yeah, I essentially ended up taking a job a few months later with them, and here I am. I'm 1 month in, and I absolutely love it. I was just down in Scottsdale at our annual event, IOTR 2024. I got to meet a ton of great hunting activists, who are really passionate about, protecting the right to hunt, honoring the hunt, you know, protecting the right to fish, both nationally, statewide, you know, at all levels of government. And it was truly inspirational for me to be in a room of people who are all so committed. And with that being said, I've also had a lot of experience since I was a young kid working alongside of SCI. My dad has been a really huge part of SCI since he was a kid too, and he actually started the Lake Superior chapter of SCI, which is up in northern Wisconsin. It's a pretty big chapter, and it's one of my favorite events of the year. It's actually um, the annual meeting, the chapter meeting that they have slash banquets and whatnot. It's actually taking place next weekend, so I'm excited for that. And that's been something that I've grown up doing. So I've grown up around a lot of avid hunters who want to protect the right to hunt both in Wisconsin, but also worldwide. And I've just really grown to have a passion for understanding conservation and why it's important and why it boosts the economy and why it helps stimulate ecosystems in, foreign countries, let alone northern Wisconsin. So it's been a great background to bring me to where I am today at IOTR. And I'm really excited to see, what's ahead in this new role. It's gonna be fun.
For someone around your age, you have had a pretty well-rounded experience, especially, you know, working for different groups and then also partaking directly in hunting and fishing. I think it's extremely important you have some proximity to these
Mhm.
issues if you are working in these type of outfits. So it's good that you do, and I think it helps organizations start to grow and expand. And could you touch more upon what your exact role with IOTR is?
Yeah, so my title is National Engagement Director. I work on our social media, I work on partnerships with other organizations, and building out just the organization in general. We are brand new. We've been around for just a few years. Like I said, we just had our second annual event. So we're growing, and we're trying to really build a great program and roll out a membership base and a program for how to get involved and just to ultimately really take this thing and run with it. It's I get to be a part of, a brand new developing organization, and I'm really excited.
One of your guys' chief focus is to protect the right to hunt and fish. So 23
Yes.
states in the United States have these protections. I think most of the states have both protections for fishing and hunting. I think the only exceptions are California and Rhode Island, which only have the right to fish, not the right to hunt. But overall, 23 states, so close to half of the United States, has some sort of protections for hunting and fishing. These are done, for those unfamiliar, kind of done preemptively to prevent, let's say, in the future, a pro-hunting administration in a state legislature or governorship switches to anti-hunting. You have these measures there in effect. So any challenges that come to hunting seasons or potential incremental prohibitions, you have rules that buffer against that through the state constitution, safeguarding. It could be a combination of hunting, fishing. I've seen proposals for trapping, including too, and
Yeah.
other different ways. I think foraging is also another one. Washington State recently had a proposal, and I think it included hunting, fishing, foraging, and trapping, which was really cool to see that language there. And so your organization had been involved this past legislative session, I think, for 4 states. Ohio is still kind of dabbling, and waiting to see what happens there. I think it's stuck in the House. And then West Virginia had some movement a little bit. South Dakota, I think you guys were responsible on your 4C side with C4 side, excuse me, with pushing it there. I think Iowa and maybe Missouri. So tell the listeners what advancements were made, if there were any, or why you guys chiefly focus on the right to hunt and fish amendments. And I know Florida, of course, Florida is going to be, I think, the first case study where you guys really went into heavily. That goes to the ballot this year, November. And I think there is some positive movement towards that since it passed overwhelmingly in the legislature.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it's really important, at a state level to have those constitutional rights to protect, each state down the road from, any administration that might challenge that, if that makes sense, whether it's fishing or hunting. The the administration that leads our country at any given time, has a lot of power and authority, but the way that our founding fathers created, our Constitution and to leave things up to each state is truly brilliant. And it's cool, thinking back to, studying civics and studying US history. It's truly fascinating. And I try to learn more and more about it every day and to try to keep my memory and my brain fully, encompassed as much as I can with how wonderful our government was set up, way back when our country was founded, and it's really cool that states have, a say in a lot of different things. And one of those things, we don't want it to ever come down to the, the president of the United States saying that the right to hunt is gone, in Wisconsin, for example, which that, they could challenge it, but they would have to really go through a lot of hurdles because we do have that right to hunt here. That is something that exists in our state constitution. So it's just really important to get as many states on board with both the right to fish and hunt. So that way those rights can't be just challenged whenever. It's not an easy challenge to make when it's in the when it's in the state constitution. I guess that's my best explanation of it. And we actually have been working with Maine too, and they actually just got to be the 24th state that has a constitutionally protected right to hunt. So, and that happened, I think, today. I might be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure it happened today. So we're actually at 24 states now. So that's a big success. That's super exciting, and hopefully we'll continue to keep the ball rolling and get more states on board. And yeah, there's a few states that we've been working really closely with. And yeah, it takes a while, just like any legislation. I mean, you can look at it from a lot of different perspectives. Really, any laws and any legislation and any constitutional amendment, it takes a lot of time. So all we can do at IOTR is be persistent and work really hard with, the key stakeholders to make this happen.
And IOTR does a lot in storytelling. Could you speak more to the recent partnership you guys got into with Cabela Family Foundation? I've watched the program on History Channel a little before
Yeah.
you guys announced the partnership that you all will be embarking on, and it's such a great program, and I think the partnership is really fantastic and unique. So could you speak to what that entails and why you guys entered a partnership with the Cabela Family Foundation?
Yeah, absolutely. We are so excited. We made the announcement almost a week ago. Yeah, we're in partnership with the Cabela Family Foundation officially. They launched a TV show called Hard Truths of Conservation, and it is a wonderful program. If you haven't seen it yet, I highly encourage you to check it out. It's based off of the National Geographic Channel, but you can watch it on YouTube, you can watch it on Hulu. There's a lot of different ways to access it. But really what happens is, so Dan Cabela is, the main character, I guess is the best way to put it. He narrates, and he's, on the camera talking through what's happening and where he is, and why he's doing what he's doing, and it really engages, the audience that's not necessarily familiar with hunting. It reaches a lot of people. They've reached millions of people with that show. So it's really a great way to get the message out there to the non-hunters and to the non-anglers, um, you know, why it's important to be involved and why it's important to support hunting and to support conservation and to support, the fishing industry because it really does impact so many people's lives and it impacts, species and it helps species thrive. Um, and so we're really excited to start, sponsoring um the Cabela show. You'll see our logo on that show for the next like 2 seasons, I believe. So you'll start to see the little IOTR logo on that show, and it's going to be really exciting. We love what they do at the Cabela Family Foundation. The Cabela family has done absolutely wonderful things for the conservation community, for years, and they're widely recognized by many people all over the world. So we're really excited, and we're very honored to work alongside of their family.
We were talking before going online, Kenya, that hunters put a lot, obviously, they put their money where their mouth is into conservation. Billions of dollars have been generated for conservation efforts since 1937 through the Pittman-Robertson Act. But there is a reticence, hesitance even, among hunters to make their voices heard at the ballot box. Why does your
Mhm.
organization think that's a problem? And what are you guys doing to kind of inspire more people to vote their interest to protect the right to hunt and fish in particular?
Yeah, yeah. So it's truly saddening, in general, how many people don't vote. It's a huge part of the US population, state by state it varies, but it's a huge chunk of the population in our country. And a big chunk of those people, a huge percentage of those people are hunters. And the why behind it all, my best explanation, as a hunter myself, is that people don't want to engage in politics. The hunters and the fishermen in the world are, a lot of them like to live, a little bit different, off grid maybe sometimes. And, we really like to, supply our food for ourselves. We like to kind of, live off the land a little bit more than a lot of other people in the country. And I think that a lot of the time there's just a disconnect and hunters don't realize how much their vote really does matter and how it affects, even hunting. It's not just about gas prices and, how much, your grocery bill is, which obviously that's super important, but it affects hunting too. And I think hunters and conservationists, anglers, I think all of us need to wake up a little bit and we need to really understand how much our vote does matter at that ballot box. And what we're doing at IOTR, um, as of right now, is we're just trying to really get the message out there that it matters. Down in Florida to protect, the right to fish is so important. I mean, it's a like multi-billion-dollar industry, the fishing industry in Florida, and all around the country. I mean, let alone, all along the East Coast. Like, think of how much fishing there is and all the charters and all of the seafood and all of the, wonderful, when you go and get sushi, all of the wonderful food you have when you go to a store, like that all comes from somewhere. And we need to protect that and we need to, you know, hold the elected officials accountable for protecting those things and to really, engage those key stakeholders at the local, state, and federal level, really encourage them to protect the right to hunt and to protect the right to fish. So we're just trying to really get our messaging out there and to really spread the word to the, sportsmen and sportswomen of the country to, you know, get to the ballot box, inform yourself, and understand why your vote matters and what your vote means.
Kenya, if someone young and up and coming is interested in having a career in conservation or wants to do something similar to you, what advice do you have for that young lady listening to the program who really wants to jumpstart her career in conservation?
Yeah, I would say definitely the best thing you can do is to get out in the field as much as you can yourself and bring people with you. Bring your kids, bring your friends, bring your sisters, bring your neighbors, especially women. Women uh, women have like one of the highest population growths in the hunting industry, I think, ever right now. I think we're the largest group, when it comes to not only firearm owners, but also hunters, huntresses, I should say. Um, but bring people with you, teach people, take someone hunting with you, have them come sit in your deer blind with you, you know, expose them to that world because I think it's so important just at the very basic level. Bring your kids hunting. It's so important to just continue the tradition of hunting and to continue the tradition of fishing too. And just to, continue growing that industry and continue growing hunting as a sport and as a hobby. And then, from there, the opportunities are endless, whether you want to be a hunting guide or you want to book safaris all over the world or you want to work on the political side of things. I mean, doors will open and, you just have to surround yourself with other outdoorsmen and women. I mean, places like SCI are places that I've met some of my lifelong, mentors, lifelong friends, lifelong people that I consider family even. So I would just encourage you, to attend stuff like that too. Attend things like IOTR annual conventions, attend your local SDI chapters and learn more about hunting and conservation and what you can do at your local level or your state level. And then maybe you'll even want to go up to the federal level. That would be definitely my biggest piece of advice.
That is some great sage advice that you have there, Kenya. And it's been such a pleasure getting to know you. Where can everyone connect with you or IOTR before we conclude our conversation?
Yeah, so basically you can go on my Instagram. You can just look up Kenya Link. I'm very active on my Instagram and my Facebook. That's the best way to keep in contact with me. Otherwise, I don't know if you could put my email and my phone number on the podcast link or description. That's a good way to get a hold of me too. I'm happy to chat with anybody about anything really. I love to make new friends and meet new people. So yeah, and I really appreciate you having me on the show, Gabriella. It's been a pleasure and I look forward to meeting you sometime soon. I think we're gonna
Yes,
be at the same place at the same time down the road.
we will be together soon. This may come out after our rendezvous in South Carolina. But yes, I'm looking forward to connecting and making your acquaintance. And I'm so glad you can come to our POMA conference, separate from this program. But it's like you said, networking is essential, and this is
Yeah.
where you make you know the magic happen at these different trade shows,
Yes.
conferences, and annual meetings. So yes, that's where all these wonderful ideas and wonderful partnerships and wonderful coming together moments take place. So yes, Kenya's right. You have to go to these conferences, go to trade shows. You will spend a little bit, but it will have long-term dividends. And we appreciate
Absolutely.
you to talk about IRTR. And yes, we will definitely connect. And yes, I will make sure that everyone listening has all your appropriate information.
Perfect.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Sportswoman Show. Your support is so crucial. Take a moment right now if you can and help us out by hitting the subscribe button on your podcatcher of choice, leaving a review, sharing with your friends, and engaging with us on social media. We also need guest ideas. If you have a suggestion on a strong outdoor woman we need to talk to, shoot our producer an email at cody@troutstreamstudios.com.